You know, it's hard to get the lighting just right, and I know it's not right, but I just decided I don't even care because I
Well,
like the view.
and the thing about it is though, see, when you have lighting behind you,
Yeah,
I mean, this is the secret that this is what those guys tell me, these people that do all these picture things and
these
stuff like that.
people. That's what these
Yeah.
people tell you.
All these people, they're saying, when you've got light behind you,
Yeah,
that light behind you then doesn't make the light in front of you as
yeah.
important. It's not.
Your lighting is good. Your
It's
lighting is always clear.
Yeah. Well, I have I have these lights can be controlled by my they can be controlled by my phone.
What you don't have is sometimes with the, like what I have with the LED lights,
Uh-huh.
the overhead lights is man, it just whitewashes everything.
I know.
You don't have that.
No,
Pretty impressive.
I've got it, and I have a cellular shade on my window, and
Mhm.
it looks just like those things that they do when they take the pictures. It's the
Mhm.
same color and everything. So I don't know.
It's awesome.
Maybe that helps.
Yeah, we'll just deal with it. It's all good.
Yeah,
All right, I need my phone. Hold on.
get you a phone.
I gotta get my phone so I can do all the sherry things and all that. I got to do the sharing things.
Share, like, and subscribe. Um, oh, are
Yeah.
you drinking like a Italian espresso or anything today?
You will be so disappointed in me.
You didn't drink not one time?
Not
Not even try
one, not one thing, bro. I didn't even drink one thing.
it? Did
How
you?
how sad is that really when you think about it? I mean, I acknowledge that. I acknowledge that it's
I know.
sad.
Well, what it means is you're just a committed non-coffee drinker.
I am just it just has no it just has no appeal to me.
Yeah.
0.
If you
None.
don't, I mean, if you don't like it, you don't like it. It's like, no, it is what it is. Did
There
you?
is an immense amount of peer pressure though, bro.
I know. Well, you know what?
There's so much peer pressure, man. But I
Use
held
your
strong. I will tell you this. This should impress you. I didn't have any sweet tea
ah
for what, 13, 14 days.
that probably made a difference.
Oh man. And this is wild. I actually dropped a couple pounds when I came
Well,
back. I ate pasta and pizza. The food is different.
it is.
You
Yeah.
hear all these stories about the stuff that we put in our food and all that kind of
Yep.
stuff.
Yep.
I mean, we ate a ton of pasta, a ton of pizza, and of course, I think we averaged 25,000 steps a day,
Yeah, I was gonna say that probably didn't have anything to do with it. I mean, you were eating carbs, but then you were walking them all off.
walking them off. Yep.
And Stephanie's nephew lives in Italy, and they said the 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 I don't know if the word crapola is that we put in a I think that's a food. Isn't that a food ingredient?
Yeah, I think I heard that on Diner Drive-Ins and Dives.
Yeah. But anyway, it's just bad, and he's like, "Man, it's just bad." He said, "I come to the United States and spend 2 or 3 days and just feel sick after,
Yeah,
like, 2 or 3 days, just, eating the junk in the food."
yeah.
So what
I will tell you this.
he's an
So,
American.
I did drink some Fanta. Of course, we've been on
Yeah,
these trips before, and, like,
yeah.
that's like a global thing. Everybody's got Fanta, but it was so weird because their Fanta, it almost looks like the color of pineapple juice,
Oh, I remember that. What
but it's
didn't they have
so
that in Africa, or was that
Mhm.
or
Africa and Ireland, we
in
drank it
Ireland?
both places.
And it was that yellowish, yeah,
Yellow, like a light, kind of a watery yellowish look
yeah.
versus what you get here in the US where it's like bright
Bright
orange.
red, orange, purple,
Yeah.
for real.
So there's definitely something to that for sure. It was
Absolutely.
it was interesting.
Wanna thank Chief Meteorologist Ken Bistarki for checking in today. He says it's 48 degrees and cloudy in Northeast Ohio. It's awesome.
Oh, that is
He was
awesome.
he
I
was,
appreciate
uh,
that.
he was at the revival, that I preached in Jefferson, Ohio. He was there in
What?
attendance. Yep, he
Oh,
was.
you got to meet the official meteorologist.
Absolutely. Yep.
That's fantastic. I did see the man, the myth, the legend, Nate Rios is on here today, and if I'm not mistaken,
Mm.
I think today's a big birthday for
Wait. Is this the day?
today's the day.
4-6, baby.
Yeah, I thought he turned 64 today. No, not 64?
That's that's his dyslexic age.
I gotta give him a hard time. We
Yeah.
love we love Rios.
Dick Vitale
Rios
would
is a
say
grinder.
he and his sports connections and whatever, you've got to sort of reference him like Dick Vitale. He says, he's no longer a diaper dandy, but he's still a good one.
My man, he does he said, "Shut it." He does got the connections, man. He's a grinder. He gets after it.
That's
So
awesome.
we're glad the elder Nate Rios is with us today,
Right.
the esteemed elder.
Yep. When you crest 45, when you
You're
crest,
officially the elder.
yep.
That you made it sound so, like, distinguished
Yes.
when you crest 45.
Right. When you crest 45, you're out over your skis and you've got it. You got your balance and you're ready to go.
All right, I'm just about finished here. Oh, man, so close to getting it all on there. I'll just do that.
We need
Push that bad boy.
it's pretty cool that now the only thing is Chief Meteorologist Ken Bastarkey tells us it's 48 degrees and cloudy in Northeast Ohio. You're in Northwest Ohio and I'm in Southwest Ohio. We need a report.
Mm,
You know, we got to get a. You know,
we do, we do. We need, like, the Weather Channel. You gotta cover the whole area.
yeah.
So, I could be like the meteorologist and, like, point to the screen behind
You
me
got
and
it. You've got it. It's like, well, you're like sitting in the studio and sometimes even they have those like over their shoulder or whatever. They're like, as you can see behind me, we got a little bit of.
which have you ever been in the
Is it
studio
raining?
before? No, it's just kinda cloudy.
Yeah.
Have you ever been in a TV studio where they're doing that before?
I did when we did the general conference in Columbus.
It's interesting, isn't it? When
It
they
is.
do the weather, like, how they have to point to the things that
Yeah.
like,
They're like
it
pointing in front of them.
yeah, the
You
point in
think they're
front of
pointing
them.
at the screen, but they've got a like a they have like a mirrored thing in front of them, and so they're pointing at it there, and it's
A
hilarious.
lot of skill to that. A lot of skill to being a chief meteorologist.
Mhm. Yeah.
It takes a
Ken
lot.
Bastarkey had the bearing of a chief meteorologist.
He did. He did. Alright, I think we're ready to go. We're locked and loaded today, bro. We've had 2 weeks.
My. Nathaniel Rios is coming up 50 degrees and sunny in North Mississippi, the epicenter of the world.
Man, that's
Epicenter
freezing.
of the world. Oxford, hotty toddy. Hey,
If your phrase is hotty toddy,
yeah.
that's not
Hotty.
the most intimidating
Yes, right.
rally cry in the world. I'm sorry, Rios, but
Hotty
it's just
toddy Ole
not, man.
Miss. Hotty toddy. Daniel Thompson says it's partially gloomy with a chance of rain or sunny.
I mean,
He must be in Ohio.
you can pretty
He's
much
like,
sums it up.
today might be between 40 and 80.
That's
We
right.
might have a thunderstorm or we might have a sunshiny, superb day.
I am in a little bit of shock. The whole time we were in Italy,
Mhm.
which I went to Italy. I don't know if anybody knows that now, but I did go to Italy. It's pretty amazing. It's gonna be my new phrase.
What is their number one coffee shop, by the way?
It's I don't know. What
Illy?
is it? Huh? Oh yeah, we saw that.
I don't know
There
what
was
that is.
another one too. There's Italy and there's another one that we saw, and the
Yeah.
coffee snobs knew all about that. But in Italy, bro, it was 85 every single day, sunny, just beautiful. And I came home to this.
That's funny. Did it ever rain? Did it rain? Did it sprinkle? Did it? No.
Not even a drop. The
Not a
whole
drop.
time we were there, sunny and hot the whole time. So it was beautiful.
My. We just had a comment by one of our live.
Yes.
I went to a university. You want to say that one?
Go ahead.
I don't know if I can say it with a straight face. Would you like to do it?
This can't be real.
I
Is
don't
this
know.
real?
Are they punking us? I've got to search it up. Like I got to search it before I say it.
We need to see the mascot.
Well, first of all, it would be if I saw the mascot, it would be the initial introduction for me to the banana slug. Is it
Yeah.
true? We're getting punked right now. They're like,
Well,
they got
I
him talking about a banana slug.
I think it's in response to us talking about the orphans. University of California, Santa Cruz, the fighting banana slugs.
No, the slithering.
It's awesome,
They'll
dude.
sneak up on you. Hey, they'll sneak up
Oh,
on you.
man, that's so amazing.
Don't think the old banana slug's just going to lay down and let you roll over it.
They'll slime you to death.
They
Oh,
will
man.
slime
What
you.
listen, here's what I wanna know. What kind of committee came out thinking that the banana slug was the best one?
No. Michael Hanks is knowing it. We're not
No.
getting punked. Sammy the banana slug is the bright face of UC Santa Cruz. Banana slugs are native to the redwood forest along the Pacific coast, but it's unlikely you'd spot one near Santa Cruz's beaches. Holy cow. Our resident Wikipedia editor.
He's just messing that up.
We've got a
That's
chief
amazing.
meteorologist. What? No, that would be CIO, Chief Information Officer.
Yes, that's him,
So
Michael
chief
Hanks. Yeah.
meteorologist and so I got to say it like that. Thank you for the report, Michael Hanks, our chief information officer at the Mobilized Sports Podcast.
It's unlikely you'd spot one at near Santa Cruz beaches. Hey, once again, I just say there's a lot of things that are native that don't make good mascots. Like, what the world, man? That's awesome.
Exactly. Well, Americans are becoming not good mascots in our current culture. Native.
This is
Americans.
true.
Yeah.
This is true. 100%. We won't touch that one with a 10-foot pole since I'm a Fighting Illini fan. So we'll just let that one slide. So
how does like Washington Redskins not why do they have all this pressure to change their names, but nobody say anything about the Fighting Illini? Or the other day I was listening.
Well, they did. They made them get rid of Chief Illiniwek.
Oh, did they really?
Oh yeah.
So it's
They were okay with the name, but the Chief Illiniwek had to go. Well, what about the Fighting Irish? Where's the uproar about the leprechauns?
I mean, bro, a misappropriation of Celtic magic.
John Hummel, and the slugs are off to a slow start. Oh, that's awesome. All right, you ready to go?
How can you tell a banana slug from a snail?
That's a good
I
question.
don't know, maybe the shell. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Peel it back. I don't know. All right, you ready to roll? Let's go.
Let's go.
Yes, Dan Thompson, always an educational podcast. That's why we're here. We're here to educate and inform. It never ceases to amaze us where we end up.
We ought to put mobilized and have a line across it and say miscellaneous instead of the mobilized church pop. The miscellaneous.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. All right, let's go. Let's rock and roll. Ready?
You know what we're like? You know what we're like?
Got to 3.
We're like a Walmart truck sale.
A truckload. We're a truckload sale.
Remember those churches?
Bro, we did 100 of those in Champaign.
You never know what you're going to get, but there are some real gems in there.
Absolutely,
that's
man.
us, dude. We are the Truckload Podcast.
You don't know what's in it, and you open it up, and you get what you get.
You get what you get, and there's going to be some good stuff, and then there's going to be some stuff like what?
There were a few times where we're like, we're not going to make any money, and then there were times we had a whole truckload of like almost all power tools. It was amazing.
Isn't that crazy?
Made a ton of money. So the old truckload sale, Jesus, I just had nightmares on that one. God have mercy, man.
Oh,
holy
man.
cow!
Hey,
all right,
Rios can get us some custom blue thread trucker hats.
Hey, let's go.
Let's do it, man. With the braided thing across between the bill and that like the 2-color. Oh, bro. How about like a 2-color?
Yeah. That's what we need.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we need. And we'll give Rios a plug. official sponsor of the Mobilized Church podcast, the Blue Thread Project. Go check it out.
That's it.
So it's good stuff. All right.
Today's podcast brought to you by
That's right.
Blue Thread Project from Oxford, Mississippi, and all points suave.
Exactly. That's their official motto. All right. We're gonna do it. We're gonna get through 3, 2, 1. You ready?
I'm
Here we
sorry.
go.
I'm
No,
sorry.
no, you're
That
good.
was
Here we go.
that
Here we go.
truckload thing was too good to pass up, though.
I got you. I got you. 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Mobilized Church podcast. This is Chris Dillingham alongside my big brother, Ken Dillingham Jr. the third. We are back. And
Better than ever.
about the same as we've always been.
Oh, come on.
What's happening on the pre-show is exactly what got us in the mess of having to do offering at General Conference.
It's very true. Very
So,
true. What mess will today's podcast get us into?
oh man, we have covered banana slugs, truckload sales, trucker hats, hottie toddy, and that's all in a matter of about 14 minutes, bro.
I know.
Once
It's
again,
funny.
just proving that ADD is our superpower.
It's very true. And when we have one of our core anchor pastors to the Mobilized Church Network, which, by the way, I have hanging in my closet here at my church office, a blue thread suit, custom made suit.
Let's go.
Nathaniel Rios. And we're glad he's a sponsor of the Mobilized Church Network and podcast and member of the Mobilized Church Network. He is in Oxford, Mississippi, and he mentions Hottie Toddy, Ole Miss. Of course, Chris, when he said Hottie Toddy, he said, "I know I am," but I'm not sure. It was crazy. It was crazy. Chris is back from Italy and just on fire today, folks.
Yes, I am. I had a great trip. Been gone a couple weeks. So we've gone on some trips before, and man, jet lag never got me, bro.
Did this one?
It doesn't matter what time I go to bed. I wake up at 5:00 in the morning, and I had this. So I'm laying there at 5:00 in the morning, and I'm thinking through, and I'm like, okay, like this comedy sketch. My body is like, dude, you're so stinking tired. And my brain was like a little chihuahua. My brain was like, it's time to get up. We gotta go. Let's go. Let's get it's time to get up. It's 11 o'clock. Let's go. I'm like, dude, just shut up. So I'm a little bit jet lagged. It's bro. You know, like when you're preaching and teaching, like your brain sometimes it just does not click. It just does not connect.
Bro.
Sunday was it was a little bit of a struggle, and then I did a wedding yesterday, and the words were not there. So you're gonna have to do the heavy lifting today. That's what I'm trying to say.
You know what? Listen, I already loaded 4,000 pounds, 2 tons of gravel in a trailer before the podcast, so I can do some heavy lifting. It's okay.
Look at that is literally
Yeah.
the heavy lifting today.
I mean, see, you're stumbling on greatness even subconsciously.
It's amazing, man.
Don't worry.
That is amazing.
You're far from the reincarnation of a chihuahua in the body of a sloth. Although, how frustrating would that be? How frustrating if a chihuahua was reincarnated as a sloth. It would be saying to his own self, "Move," for crying out loud. And the sloth is just like,
that's what I feel like right now. I feel like that. I feel like the sloth with a chihuahua spirit or something. I don't know what's going on. So,
oh man!
But we're glad to be back, man.
Absolutely.
It's weird. We've done this. This is episode 156, I believe, 156. And I don't know that we've missed 2 weeks in a row like that. So
it's the first time, I think.
Yeah, so we certainly hate that, but appreciate understanding. Italy was amazing, bro. Not gonna lie. Italy was legit. It was the real deal. Got to see the Colosseum, got to swim. I can't remember what sea it is. Tyrrhenian?
Wow.
Something like that. The Amalfi Coast. Maybe our chief geographical expert, somebody on here could help us and tell me. I can't remember what the sea is there,
Yeah.
but it was
Did
absolutely
you go to the
gorgeous.
Vatican and see the Holy See?
We did.
I don't think that's SEA though, is it?
We did. I don't wanna be offensive out of the gate, but of all the things that we did, the Vatican was absolutely the least impressive.
Amazing.
I mean,
Amazing.
totally, completely the least impressive. We even, the Sistine Chapel, you know, you kind of have built up, like, what
Yeah.
it's gonna be.
Yeah.
You go through this long deal, and then they herd you in like cattle,
Uh-huh.
and they cram you in this small little space and no pictures and whatever,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
it just wasn't
Did
man, it just wasn't the thing, bro.
did you see, St. Peter's Basilica? That's in Rome, isn't it?
So we were there, we didn't go in it, and I'll tell you why we didn't go in it. The line to get in, bro, this is the God's honest truth.
Uh-huh.
It had to have been a 5, 6 hour wait in line in 85 degrees in the sun. It was hotter than blue blazes to go inside. I'm like, I'm not doing it. I
Wow.
look at
Well,
it from the outside.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you. You could rub his toe. It is reputed. Well, they've kissed the toe off of him.
Mm.
Poor Pete. I mean, he doesn't have a big toe anymore.
How does he balance?
It's tough, and why? Like why? Well, you know what I'm saying? Like why? Why are you going to? I mean, like they go out. It's like the religious version of like these schools. I don't know. Maybe some on here. We've had some university references and Sammy the Slug, and we've had University of or Ole Miss,
Ole
Ole
Miss.
Miss University, Ole Miss. Is that University of Mississippi? And their nickname is Ole Miss? That's a good question.
That is a great question.
And so anyway, with that being said, they run out of the for the football games and whatever, and they rub the head of something, or I don't know, Notre Dame. You mentioned maybe they touch the leprechaun or point to touchdown Jesus. I'm not sure, but I mean, why like why rub the toe? Why kiss the toe of Peter? And it's reputed that when the Catholic Church began to boy, you talk about offensive. It's reputed that they to try to get these mythological Greco-Romans to adopt to Christianity, that they basically took the body of Zeus and put a new head. And so the merging, yeah, right. That Peter, the statue of Peter at St. Peter's Basilica, was actually initially a a, 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 a statue of Zeus. So,
It's crazy. It
which
is.
was the Catholic apologetic. Like the Catholic apologetic was, let's go in and find what the culture does, and turn that to a Christian context.
We went to Anthony Richards said toe jam for St. Peter, St. Pete.
Yeah.
We went to several basilicas and whatever, and
Yeah.
one thing that was really you could definitely see that how that there was kind of interwoven into the mythology. It was in their basilicas. It was
Yeah.
there was a lot of strange things. And speaking of offensive, our man Gary Gothier, he sums up pretty much what the Vatican was like. He said how I feel a Taylor Swift concert would be, lots of hype. So that's, I mean,
Bro.
for all the Swifties out there, whatever that means. I'm
Can
kind
you
of
tell
disappointed that I
can
even know what a
hey,
Swiftie is, but
can I tell you something crazy?
yeah.
I literally could not name you not one Taylor Swift song. Just like you have virgin taste buds to coffee, I have virgin ears.
That's amazing.
Never a
That is
Taylor Swift
amazing.
song. I don't know. I couldn't even tell you one. What would it be?
I don't even know. I have no idea, no clue. One thing that I'll just say real quick before we get into our topic, so we did a little boat tour in Amalfi Coast, and we had the guy
Thank
that
you, Jay. Thank you, Jay.
what was it?
He said, Ken, just shake it off.
I think that might be a song. Is that a
I think so.
song?
Shake it off, baby. Is it shake it?
I
No,
don't know.
I don't know.
Easy,
I
easy,
don't.
easy. Don't go there. Don't
No,
go
no.
there.
I'm thinking of the song "Shake It Up, Baby." No, that's a different one. Okay, sorry.
You still don't know. You still don't know.
I'm
No,
I'm still flailing in the deep end.
for real, for real. One thing I'll just mention real quick, that when you have a trip like that, we had a great conversation with the guy that was our boat driver for a little tour in the Amalfi Coast, and it just reminds you,
Bro,
Ken.
there was an air of condescension to that phrase. Our boat driver for our tour of the Amalfi Coast.
It was
That's
not nearly as glamorous as it sounds. Although there was a yacht, there that
that's great.
literally
Rub it right up my nose holes, would ya?
there was a yacht there that had
Golly.
to have cost $300 million, bro. It was absolutely unbelievable. So we did not ride that. We rode on a 24-foot boat. So anyway, we're going
Jay
along.
Jones. Oh, by the way, I walked on the moon. I mean,
I walked on the moon. That's a Brian Regan.
the
How
guy
do you top that? The guy that
it's
one tops it,
that's right.
one
That's
ups it.
right.
I
Right.
walked on the moon.
Neil Armstrong. You tell a story to Neil Armstrong goes, "That's nice."
I walked on the moon. I was gonna have a spiritual point to this. This
Golly,
is
I'm
not
so sorry. Chris,
condescending.
no, I'm sorry. This is the first time we've had an opportunity to
It
talk
is. It
since you've
is.
gotten back from Italy, and so this is two brothers, two bros
Just
doing their
catching up.
Philadelphian thing.
Exactly. Philadelphian thing. So yeah, so the conversation with this guy, and a little humor. He asked us what we did, and we said we're pastors, and he didn't understand. So we're trying to explain to him. He's like priests, and then he looked at our wives.
He was like,
Who are
Padre,
these women?
Padre and Padre Mama.
Who are these women? So we tried to explain it to him, but I was
You
blown
should have said,
away.
"This is my nun, Jen."
Well, he did. I won't say what he said, but he did make a comment that was pretty enlightening about how, like, he was a younger guy. He was 26, 27, I think, younger guy, in his view of the Catholic Church
Hmm.
and what they represented, whatever. But I was just blown away about, like, man, you just get exposed to, there's a lot of lostness in our world, and people that just have no frame, like he had no framework of understanding about, like, what we 99% of
Crazy.
Americans understand about Christianity. He had no frame of reference for us. Wild.
Which is an amazing segue. Chris, you are stumbling into genius today, even with
Stumbling and bumbling.
no,
See, listen, you're used in the prophetic. Like, when God gives you a word and a
no.
dream, I say stuff by accident all the time. That's my spiritual gifting, is stumbling, the
You know
spiritual
what?
gift of stumbling.
You know what? Listen. Some people never have genius. Just wrap your arms around genius by accident.
I'm going to. I'm going to embrace it. I'm going to totally embrace it.
You know what's funny is you said stumbling. I was thinking of the irony of stumbling into a genius segue with jet legs, but it's not jet legs, it's jet lag. So
Jet legs. It feels like jet legs. So, all right. So we're back. We're back. And this was, I know the pre-show went a little bit long, but man, we had to connect and talk about all the things. So,
Yeah.
so today I'm going to let you kind of just take it and just set this up, because if I understand correctly, you listen to a podcast
Mhm.
that kind of really is it's an important discussion that we're all going to have. And I know, I know sometimes, like, you can read the statistics and you read the numbers, like, we don't chase trends. We talk about that a lot. Like, we talk about megachurch trends, which, by the way, there was a report that came out that megachurch they were saying that there were, pre-COVID, anywhere like about 1,800 megachurches in America. Did you see this stat?
I
I think it was
actually
Rayner.
didn't.
I think it was Rayner that said that they estimate right now, they're saying there's about 1,200 post-COVID. There's about 1,200, but the numbers are hard to come by, and they actually think a more accurate number is that post-COVID, it cut it in half.
Golly, dude. Which is interesting because that would connect with our, oftentimes we talk about that the attractional church both points to the doubling of the number. We talk about 1970, every decade it went 150, 300, 600, 1200. So 1200 would have been the 2000 mark. And I think it was up to 1500 or so by 2020. So can you imagine if it cut it in half? It would cut it back to the numbers between 1990 and 2000.
Crazy. And
Interesting.
it's dwindling. So we talk about, like, trends or numbers or whatever can be helpful to kind of understand, but not just trends and numbers, but just looking at kind of the reality of, the world around us, the next generation, particularly as it pertains to, like, faith and all that kind of stuff. So he's kind of talking about, how technology affects it, what we're looking at. So I'm gonna let you set this up about kind of what we're looking at the younger generations and what that means as it pertains to the mission. And I think, man, I think this is such an important conversation because, again, we're not going to chase trends, but we have to learn how to be effective in the hour that we're living in. We can beat our chest and gripe and complain about. I mentioned this Sunday. Like, we can complain that it's not Mayberry anymore,
That's true.
but it's not. We're not going, bro. We're not going back to Mayberry. It's not.
No,
You
no,
know.
absolutely.
So I'm gonna let you set up kind of the podcast,
All right.
what it was about, and then set up the topic for today.
It's awesome. Well, this the podcast that I listened to had a guest on the show by the name of Stephen Robertson, and he wrote
Not
a
to be
book.
confused with the Duck Dynasty people, right?
True. He may be a secret. I don't know, maybe a secret cousin, kissing cousins. But anyway, he wrote a book, as you mentioned. Maybe you mentioned it in the pre-show, Aliens Among Us,
Yeah.
and I know it's in the title. And he spent most of his life in youth ministry. I believe it might be Australian potentially. I don't know that by his bio. I just know that by his
Right.
accent on the podcast. But anyway, you know,
Right.
stereotypically speaking. So it was interesting because what he was talking about and what they were talking about in the podcast and what they were specifically interviewing him about, was sort of these trends, that sort of generational trends that have shifted culture. And he was making some socio-cultural, with implications of the mission, implications of what's Christianity going to do based upon some of those trends, some of those sociological shifts.
Yeah.
And so he just mentioned, they started off kind of talking about that. He mentioned technology is the reason that many generations flip.
Hmm.
And so there are technological advances, things that happen technologically, inventions and so on and so forth, that basically reframe the way cultures do life, the way they see themselves, the way they interact, the way that they basically conduct their business, etc. Well, I think an example of this is they talk about the boom from like 2000 to 2010. I read a book. There's a book called oh golly, man, it just hit my head, and it's a strange title, but I'll remember it here in a minute. But anyway, the book it talks about how that there was this growing level of information that came to England right at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. And these people were leaving farms because there were enough family members to carry on the farm, and the sort of that uh, lifestyle that was agrarian. And some of the people were moving to like London or whatever. And so Cognitive Surplus is the name of the book. Clay Shirky wrote the book. cognitive surplus. And he talks about, this is interesting, because he in the book, and it's a very interesting book that anybody that's listening should really ought to grab it. If you got Audible, man, it's a really interesting book. But in the book, he talks about how that there was a wider scope of information and knowledge from, because if you live on a farm, you've got to be able to do a bunch of different things. And so all of a sudden, these people came into these industrial contexts looking for a job,
Yeah.
and they started working in factories and different things. And they started saying, why do you do it like that? And they said, well, what do you mean? How differently would we do it? And they started saying, well, if you did this and you did this and whatever, and that, they say that was basically the impetus. This is crazy, Chris. That
Yeah.
was the impetus of the Industrial Revolution, because there was this sort of this cognitive surplus that started seeing things in different ways and started producing and providing answers inside this sort of this closed network that said, well, we created the factory and this is what we've done, and we created this institution and we've got this industry. What are you going to bring to it to make it better? And they did.
And they did
And
it.
one example of that is from 2000 to 2010. They said that the expansion of cell phones
Yeah.
and cell towers allowed people to have uh, massively more potential, because they could make phone calls on the road. They could be
Yeah.
driving to the airport, and instead of that being dead downtime, they're doing business and making calls and connecting and so on and so forth. So
Sure.
now we have a whole generation that was sort of raised in that environment. So then you have COVID, and people are like, well, why can't I just work from home? Because they're natives to that type of an environment. So this
Right. Right.
podcast,
You can work anywhere, do any, right. Yeah. It's so
right.
true, man. Wow. It's
So
crazy.
so ultimately, this podcast is basically talking about, from a missional perspective, how do these digital native Gen Zers, what's different about them, and how are we going to reach them?
It's interesting. It's interesting. And, I remember hearing, even when we were growing up, hearing how that because of the technological advances that were being made, they used to say like knowledge and understanding, for way back
Yeah.
because of slow technology. Obviously, the printing press and all that kind of stuff started speeding things up, but it would take literally like generations
It's very true.
for major shifts and change to begin to happen. But all of a sudden, these technological things started happening. And, I remember hearing like what used to take 100 years for change in a culture, now it happens in a decade, and that pace keeps speeding up. And one of the things you mentioned about that podcast that he was talking about was, with each of the generations, the greatest generation with radio and telephone, silent generation with electricity, boomers with microwave, Gen X with personal computers, millennials, internet, Gen Z with smartphones, and now Gen Alpha with AI. Bro, think about that. Think about
Bro.
how those technological things have totally transformed. I was telling somebody the other day, like, bro, me. I'm probably the least handy dude on the planet, right?
Well, I think that might be a
No, no,
stretch.
no, no,
That
no,
might be
no.
a stretch.
I'm up there. I'm high on the list.
Yeah.
I'm very good at cleanup, and I'll do what I can, but I'm just not a handy guy. Doesn't, wasn't really raised around any,
Yeah.
like, never had examples or whatever. And I was telling somebody the other day, I was having trouble with the snowblower a few years ago, and thank God for YouTube.
Great point.
I took the snowblower apart and put it back together, and, you know, where
Yeah.
I could have never done that 20 years ago, because I wouldn't have known even where to begin. But literally, I could find the make and model of my snowblower,
Right.
and they walked me through how to do that. So just to say, all of those kinds of things, we're not living in Mayberry. Times are different, things are changing. access to information, and not only that, the influencers, right, which is a big thing in our world today, social
Mhm.
media influencers, but more importantly than that, access to uh, education and communication, information, all of that kind of stuff that's perpetuated by colleges and universities is rooted and grounded in secularism and
Mhm.
humanism, right? So now you have people who don't have that foundation of faith from family or whatever, and now they have access to all of this information. And again, we can bemoan and we can cry about it or whatever, but this is the world that we're in. So then the question becomes, Ken, and this is what I'll throw to you.
Mhm.
Okay,
Okay.
how do we navigate through this as the church, as believers? How do we navigate through this reality? Like, should we just stand and be like, bless God, we're going to stand. The truth is the truth, and it applies to all generations, and
Mm.
we're just, or how do we adapt to the fact that our world is quickly changing, and how we received, uh, the challenge of the gospel might be different, how the next generation sees it or receives it. How do we navigate through kind of that complexity?
Has to begin by separating kingdom truth from cultural methodologies.
Mm, okay.
I think it starts there. Personally, I don't know.
Yeah,
I think it starts there. I haven't I haven't done, a deep dive. We do. I mean, this podcast is. I mean, it's dynamic and it's live and just in time.
yeah,
But Chris, I would say that we have to have the ability. Um, we have to have the ability to fall in love. The Bible said that they received the deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, for they receive not the love of the truth. I think that what we have to do is we have to stay in love with truth and fall out of love with the methodologies that were that that
yeah,
that 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 reached us, or that we've got to throw away the cultural and methodological implications of that archaic song. It was good for Paul and Silas. What are they talking about? The old time religion. Old
mhm,
time religion. What do you mean old time religion? Right? I think what has to happen is, because when many Christians sing that song, they're thinking of the entire contextual experience.
absolutely.
And they're not just
All
simply
of
saying,
it.
yes,
Yeah.
all of it. They're talking about, there are people that are saying, you know what the problem with the church is today? We don't have revivals like we used to have.
Mhm.
And so what they're doing is they're saying, why are they saying that? Because I remember a day when, buddy, you call for revival and people would stop everything that they're doing. They would put down, and you hear the stories, we had revival 6 days a week, and on Monday we had wash day,
Yeah.
you know, and and they would use that as an example. I believe that is so important for us to understand, and that is that there is that they were in love with something that was a methodological mechanism for reviving the church. It was it was bringing people back in, and we're going to
Yeah.
have 6 days of services. We're going to have 3 weeks, 4 weeks of it, and we're going to go and we're going to put everything else down, and whatever. Now, so the question then becomes, okay, well then what's the principle behind that? Is there a kingdom principle? Is there a kingdom principle to what was making revivals valuable? And that was Jay. That was my word, Jay. That was exactly the word that I was just going to mention. He says Jay Jones just said we romanticize the methods of the past because they're intrinsically tied to our personal spiritual experience. That's
Yeah.
it.
That's exactly right.
And that's exactly what I was just going to say. I started to say, and so the thing that profoundly affected us. We always have. I was going to say either a nostalgic, if it's not there anymore. So, like, or romanticized view, and which nostalgic is, I wish I could go back to it. A romanticized view is that later I think of it better than it was. And
Yeah.
and you know what, Chris? You and I drove down Green Street Road. You,
Mhm.
you and I drove down Green Street Road at the to the old house where we were at, or where
Yeah.
we lived, I mean. And we looked in the yard and we were like, that
Yes.
that yard was so much bigger when we were kids.
It was a huge football field,
That was a
a
football field
massive football field,
with our
and
mobile home sitting in the middle of a football field. It was, and it
when
was
we
like,
got there, it was like 10 yards. Like, how did what?
I'm like, no wonder Chris was like, learned how to catch a Nolan Ryan fastball. I was throwing it from 30 feet. It was like, skip out. I'm
Ooh,
like,
the fastball was fine, it was the knuckle curveball that got me in the nose every time.
man, but I think, I just think this is something that, you asked the question, like, what are we going to do to capture this? What are we going to do? What do we have to do?
Yeah,
And I think the thing that we have to do to sort of reframe the way that we think is we just simply have to fall out of love with methodologies. We know that it's not gonna let's say it like this: the generation that was impressed with the fact that you could walk around with a cell phone was like, and the ways that created culture shifts and change.
yeah,
It's just a way of living for the digital natives that are Gen Z. So
absolutely.
I think that's the thing that we have to look at and say, what's the principle inside that? There's a principle that we can never leave behind, but we're going to have to just simply say, you know what? Let's throw methodologies to the wind. There's nothing intrinsically kingdom about the way we do church, or
Yeah,
it's people freak out about that.
they do, and as you were talking there, I was thinking about, like, again, the pendulum thing. I think a lot of people, when you start talking like that, kinda freak out because there is a big deconstructionist movement,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
And the difference between what we're talking about and deconstructionists is, the deconstructionists are saying everything is on the table
That's it. What we
versus
believe, why we believed it, all of it. Yeah.
absolutely, let's deconstruct all of it because we're in modern times, and this is where you get people that start accepting things that are clearly, you know, a violation of the moral character of God, and people are like, "Yeah, but we're in a different era, and, love is love," and they start like, all this kind of stuff, and so people get concerned, they get scared when we have conversations like this because they tie it to something that's negative, but what we've gotta do is we can't allow that to hinder us from real,
Hmm.
needed, important conversations that are saying, like, exactly what you said, we are anchored
Yeah,
in the forever settled word of God.
exactly.
That's never gonna change. So
Never.
so so that the forever settled word of God is relevant to every culture, every generation, everywhere for all time. That'll never change.
That's right.
But how we reach the people that we're called to reach, how we reach the hour that we're living in with that message is it's gonna be a different thing. And we've talked about this before. Previous generations, there were a lot of people that apostolic people, the people that we were trying to reach, it was, man, they just need the revelation of Jesus' name baptism.
Boy, great point,
They
bro.
already have faith, they've got that.
Know your
And
audience.
know your audience, and truthfully, the approach was very much informational because there was already feeling and emotion there about God. There already was people that had a love for God. They just need a little more information so that it could transform or lead them into the fullness of truth, right?
So true.
This generation is so inundated with information, and there are so many voices that are vying for particularly the next generation that's vying for their attention, that this next generation, this is hard, bro. I had a conversation with a licensed therapist yesterday, a pastor who's a licensed therapist, and I said, one of the things that's hard for me, our dad was a coach, and a lot of the way we were raised was like, if you lose, suck it up. Nobody's gonna feel sorry for you. Get up, work harder, go figure it out and get
Mhm.
right. Like, so there wasn't a lot of, "Oh, man, it's gonna be okay. You're gonna be alright. You're gonna be good." It was
Yeah.
just kind of like, "You need to get up and do it." And
And the by the way, and the self-contemplation was more pragmatic. The self prog the self
yeah,
it wasn't like you were looking at yourself going, "Man, what why am I not succeeding? What am I doing? What am I?" It was like, no, it was like, no, you didn't play lockdown defense. You were you
yeah,
were lazy. You didn't hustle. You was
right.
don't self-prognosticate.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, and he was talking about, so I was just asking him about, like, the anxiety in this generation. He said it's mostly tied to worth
Oh, that's interesting.
that this generation has because they're exposed to,
That's
like,
so good,
a
dude.
fraudulent view of what they think real life is, what people really live, right? And they're exposed to, you've got people that they pack up and they go live in a Sprinter van for 8 months, and it looks like they've got an amazing life, and they like they see this
Mhm.
world, and they feel like that they're
So
missing
good.
something, and it's very emotionally driven, and he said, "Here's the problem. We know this. When you try to approach people from a rational, informational standpoint, but they're emotionally driven, you're it's like 2 ships passing in the night. You're not gonna reach those people that are emotionally driven with information." So, anyway, I just thought that was kind of an interesting take about our perspective oftentimes is to tell the next generation, "Look, here's the word of God, here's the truth. You need to do it, just live it, and whatever."
Mhm.
And what we know is people typically don't do what they know, they typically do what they feel, and that's particularly true for the younger generation.
Absolutely. I think and what you're all that you just described is in essence describing why Stephen Robertson calls this generate well calls the current the current contextual missional context. Let me say it like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
For us, okay, so when you say aliens among us, then what you would be saying is that our our perspective, the lens is on us. Okay.
Yeah.
So in other words, because they are what they are.
Sure.
So when somebody is in the United States and they say they're they're an alien immigrant or an illegal alien or whatever, but like this idea of aliens um, is are people that like aren't from here. What you just described when you mentioned about people having a biblical context, having a desire to know God or having a desire to be right with God or do I know all the truth or am I
Sure.
really saved or whatever. Those things are cultural contexts into which we do mission. In
Yeah.
other words, we're doing mission in that cultural context. So when you say in the book Aliens Among Us, you talk about those types of things. You're saying these people are no longer those people.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you have somebody from let's say okay, so you already mentioned about the guy the your the guy the boat driver guy
Sure.
from Italy 20
Yeah.
something whatever and you mentioned that you are pastors and he's like not even having a clue. You said you specifically said he didn't have any cultural frame of reference. In fact, his cultural frame of reference was it was that he was that you were priests.
Right.
That was his cultural frame of reference.
Right.
So I think it's interesting that when so today, as we're talking about our topic, of course, being the relevance of about Gen Zs, here's some interesting information. What makes them not what makes them culturally not the same people that we were trying to reach 50 years ago? Well,
Yeah.
couple things. You know, one of the things that they mentioned in the podcast was there's so much content vying for Gen Z's attention. They've learned how to filter whether something is worth their time or not within a few seconds.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
Another thing is, so here's just some key points, and I'll just run down these key points, and then
Sure.
maybe we can just discuss some of this. But one thing that he said was, Stephen Robertson said, "When the kingdom lands, this is a generation that goes after it completely." It's interesting. So this is not like, it's just not negative. It's not, like, oh, this is terrible. Another data point: 52% of the world's population is under 30.
Hmm.
Now, think about that for a minute. Think about the fact that 52% of the world's population is under 30.
It's wild.
Okay.
That's wild.
Um, Gen Z is the only, so this is crazy. Okay. Gen Z is the only generation that's mentored by their peers.
Okay. I want you to talk about that, because I think that is an interesting perspective and an interesting point. So
Yep.
tell me what that means, and what does that mean for us?
Well, so I think that what that means to some degree is the fact that the proliferation of social media has allowed for Gen Zers to be able to get on and do, whether it's Instagram or TikTok or whatever. It's allowed people to be, and by the way, I think Justin Bieber was sort of like he was the tip of the spear of this.
Mhm.
Justin Bieber was a YouTube sensation. Justin Bieber didn't start off as a what's a brand, music brand, Sony Records.
Yeah.
He didn't
Yes.
start off as a Sony Records signed recording artist. He started off doing covers of songs on
Mhm.
YouTube
Mhm.
and got so much popularity on YouTube that he was discovered. And then somebody said, "Hey, let's give him a platform." And then he made some, records. And then, of course, the rest of the story. But I think what's interesting is, so I think that what this means is that from sort of Justin Bieber till today, there are people that have had my wife was telling me the other day that there are 12 and 13-year-olds that are millionaires because they have YouTube channels, and they use social media to open and talk about products, toys. They'll open
What?
up toys. Listen to me. They have channels where they'll take a toy and they'll say, "I've got here today this, whatever the new toy is, or the new, something that everybody's wanting, or a new pair of shoes." And like, whatever. And they'll just have an entire deal where they'll go through and they'll talk about it and whatever. And these people are realizing that massive numbers of their peers, their age group, are watching. And so now they're like, "We want to sponsor your channel. We want to advertise on your channel. We want to, whatever." So
Right.
they're millionaires at 12 years old.
Wow.
Okay. How does that all equate to that they are the first generation that was mentored by their peers? I think that what it is that it's, it's the, it's the old saying that the institutional church used to say to families:
Okay.
"We have your kids for an hour." We cannot override the effects of culture and secularization
Sure.
in an hour. You've got them every single day in your home. Your home has to become the key place of disciple making.
Sure.
Okay, same thing. Elders and mentors and people that are older and people that used to do, like in school and whatever. When a child goes home and the only thing that they've got is a television that their mom and dad control the remote to, they don't they're only their entertainment, their life, everything that is happening in the context of overseers that are older than them.
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden now we've got a generation where they've got Be Real and they've got cell phones and they've got texting and they got phone calls. And so they're actually coaching each other in life. They're asking questions. They're going to their bedroom. They go to their bedroom and
Bro,
they hang out in
so
their
true,
it,
man.
right? So
It's so true.
they're
It's so
mentoring each
true.
other. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, man. It's it's such a crazy it's such a crazy thing to think, right? That the most important it's like we see it played out. They're social media influencers. What do they do? What have they done? Well, they've just leveraged the technology, and there is an appetite for that,
Yeah.
right? Because I think there's a view like it's relatable. You understand, like every generation thinks that the older generation doesn't understand the problems of their generation or whatever. And so now you have access to people on TikTok and Reels and all these things that are my people who know they're going through the same thing I'm going through, and they're
Yep.
able to talk these things through. And we can look at that and we can frustrate this, but let it frustrate us. But you made a point in our pre-show that I thought was amazing. And that is, man, think about the potential and the opportunity of if we could get, or if we can get apostolic believers on mission in that generation, they have the ability to be influencers because
Bro.
that's the expected norm
That's it.
for that generation.
That's it, dude. See, that's the thing, and I think and that's so good. I want to highlight. Jay Jones made the comment. He said, "When we're on mission, they aren't the alien, we are." That's so true, right? I think that's the point. That is the realization. See, that's the realization that churches have to come to, particularly attractional model churches that say we've got to get the aliens to us and then
Yes.
socialize them into our Christian context. And, and
Right.
and people hear that and they're like, well, what do you want to do? Just leave them where they are and let them be what they are and just whatever. No, no. See, here's the deal. But that's why that the pseudo industrialized church is unfortunately not equipped because it was built. What was it built to do? It was built to make a particular widget,
Mhm.
and it's making a widget that people aren't using anymore,
Mhm.
or that they don't know that they need, or they've been through secular humanism and through indoctrination at public schools, or through even maybe church kids.
It's right. It's like, what was the company? What was the company that made calculators?
Sharp.
And they
Oh no, Texas
Texas
Instruments.
Instruments, right?
Yeah, yeah. That's
Texas Instruments.
you're going to good to great on me.
Good to great, right? Texas Instruments. They doubled down on calculators versus going to computing.
People said they'll be on phones soon. And they're like, but that was the thing, that was the technology that got them on the map. And so they just couldn't divorce themselves from that.
And right, and that's the thing. Gary Gauthier made the point of how can we move the movement to flip the script so that we can be the influencers that turns the world upside down and living questionable lives. I think exactly. I think there is an appetite and a hunger for younger believers because they see and know
Yep.
the influence that their peers are having on them, the influence that is happening on social media and all that kind of stuff. I think the challenge is this, Ken. So I think there's an appetite for it in
Okay,
younger
you said
believers.
appetite. Let me throw something out.
Yeah.
Do you think the possibility is that there are young people in the church that are eating broccoli because their parents have convinced them, the church has convinced them that the value and the importance of it? They just know that there's no possible way they can get their friends to eat broccoli.
Mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely, 100%. And so I think with that, I do think that there's a hunger for relationships. So we're not saying like what we need to do is turn all of our apostolic young people into social media influencers. What we are saying is the generation is it is their norm
Mhm.
to be influenced by others
By
and to
each
share
other.
their by each
By each
other.
other.
Correct, by each other. So what if we can raise up the younger generation to say, as a disciple of Jesus, you have the potential and the responsibility to build relationships, and just like you're trying to be influenced about lifestyle choices and all of these kinds of things, how can you leverage that to them to show them that it's not broccoli?
So good, bro.
Jesus is not broccoli. Jesus is
Yeah.
not something that you gotta just hold your nose and swallow. He's the best. This life is the best life. That's what we've gotta figure out on uh, y y how to really get this concept and this message into that generation so that they believe, because they're facing right, the broccoli thing, they're facing, yeah, but they think that we're homophobic, they think that we're old-fashioned, they think that we're this, they think that we're that, and
Hence hence the relevancy movement of the early 2000s, right? Hence the relevant church thing,
yes,
the whole relevant church thing.
yes.
Hence the whole stupid debate between the preservationists and progressives of turning your church into a nightclub. Such a stupid, idiotic debate. I'm just going to say it just like that.
Right.
It's it's
Say
it's
it.
it's it's like two clowns arguing which is the better clown nose.
Hate clowns.
I know, right? That's what I'm
Hate
saying.
clowns.
Like, it's only matters to you if you're a clown. It's
Right.
it's you're arguing.
Right.
They're turning
Right.
their churches into nightclubs with the dark lights and what. Okay, so what's going on with that? Okay. No, your answer isn't we need to return to this era. What That's not the answer. The answer isn't turn your lights on in the church. And it's crazy. But here's the deal. But what it is, here's what it is. It's this. I'm not trying to be ugly. I, I'm just accomplishing it unwittingly here, I think, but I'm not trying. But when I say when I say the pseudo-industrialized American church, I'm not saying that to be provocative. I'm not saying that to try to be mean or rude or anything. I'm just trying to say that to say, just to jog people's thinking, to say that the pseudo industrialized American church was a church that was built on there's a particular consumer that we're trying to produce a particular product for. And what happens is the dimmed lights and the relevant church and the blah, 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 and whatever is still the church, is still the old factory
Mhm.
trying to reproduce its product in a way that says, God, how can we get our consumers back?
Yeah.
And I think, Chris, what we're saying is, in a generation where, in a world where 52% of the world is under the age of 30, which means 52% of the world was millennial to Gen Z.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that what we're saying is, in a world where this is the first generation that has, uh, um, that has become their own peer influencers, their own, they're their own mentors. In
Yeah.
other words, the first generation that's mentored itself. And God says, church, don't you see what I'm doing? What is a peer to peer spiritual influencer? It's called a disciple maker.
Bro, I literally was just getting ready to say that.
It's
Is
called a
is
disciple maker. It's a disciple making movement. It's X groups. It's peers in an X group experiencing. You just said, what could we do to cause them to know it's not broccoli? I'll tell you how. We get disciples that are disciples that are experiencing transformation, and the transformation is that they're coming every single day.
yes.
They're coming to the conclusion that God's kingdom way is a better way, that the
Yes.
kingdom better is something that's showing up in their life every day, and they become walking billboards that Jesus's kingdom is better. And what does Stephen Robertson say? When the kingdom lands, this is a generation that goes after it 100%.
Absolutely. Instead of wringing our hands and getting frustrated, what if we just embrace what is the Spirit doing? What is the Spirit doing in our culture? Is it possible that God is just restoring us back to he's situating this generation
Wow.
for his soon return, and before he comes, the revival of souls, the greatest revival the
Wow.
world is ever going to see. As is it possible that God is just positioning us like He
Just
did for His first coming, when all things began with the Roman Empire? How God positioned and situated everything for the propagation of the gospel to reach the whole world. Is it possible that Jesus is doing the same thing now for His second return? So we can wring our hands and we get frustrated about it, or we can look at it and say, look, what if we were intentional about doing exactly what you said, communicating to everybody, but being very specific and focused to the 52% that you talked about,
yeah.
and said exactly what you said. Be the disciple that's consistently experiencing personal transformation, so that it's not just a belief system that you don't just eat broccoli because that's what mom and dad make you do, but you're personally experiencing that transformation where now there's vitality in your walk and relationship with God. And then show them that that God has given them the opportunity to be an influencer in this generation. And the goal is not to be an influencer like the world.
Right.
Where an influencer like the world is
Or we're influencers so that you can become famous, or influencers
famous. How many likes can I
so
get?
he can become famous.
That's it. And how do I do that? If I can build relationships and build connections in a generation. One of the things we talked about with this therapist yesterday was that's one of the impacts and effects of social media is it is literally physiologically affecting the brains of those that have been raised with screens and social media, and the place that it's affected their brain is relational.
Wow.
That's why there's social anxiety. I asked him, I'm like, bro, I've never seen social anxiety until this generation.
What
And
does
it's
that
because
mean?
it's
Yeah.
because of all of this, because they don't know they're connected to thousands of people, but they don't have the nonverbal communication skills to
Yeah.
understand certain things and whatever. So but there's a craving and there's a hunger. What if we could empower the next generation that says you can be a disciple,
Mhm.
that you can build relationships with people and begin to influence them, to show them that the things that they've heard and the things that they've been told about Jesus and his ways are not true. Let me show you that Jesus is the better way.
Yeah.
Bro, it's a setup.
That's it.
Stop
That's
whining and complaining about this is
well,
a setup.
let me undergird that. Let me undergird that with the more, some, just a little bit more, some of our notes here. Let me undergird it with saying this, right? Gen Z, here's what Stephen Robertson says. Okay. To your point,
Yeah.
Gen Z needs application brought to the knowledge that they are inundated with.
Mm,
That's what he says.
okay.
Okay. Gen Z needs application brought to the knowledge that they are inundated with. Okay. Next quote. I'm still quoting Stephen Robertson.
Yeah.
Information is no longer the important commodity.
Bro.
We grew up saying, they said this is the information age. Well, now you have a generation that says, actually, actually information is the garbage heap. It's the landfill I'm living in.
This is the misinformation age.
See, we said the information age, Wikipedia, and we're like, wow, look at all this information. You don't have to have the Encyclopedia Britannica anymore. That's a phrase that doesn't even, like, what do you? I don't even know what you mean. It's like,
Poor encyclopedia salesman. They
yeah,
got
it's like,
pushed out.
isn't the internet amazing? You don't even have to have the Encyclopedia Britannica anymore. You can Google it. You got Wikipedia. And so for what was amazing to just a generation or two generations before Gen Z, they're sitting there going, actually, it's all that information that's making me not know what to believe. It's all that information that's making me nervous. It's all that information that is just frustrating. And so he says, Gen Z, right? Gen Z needs application brought to the knowledge that they're inundated with. Information is no longer the important commodity. Watch this about disciple making. Ready? It's called a GPS. The old GPS was in a satellite, and it was non-personal,
Mm-hmm.
right? But he says the new GPS for this generation is guide position by the side.
Ooh.
Where it was global
Whoa.
position, where it was a global positioning satellite,
Now it's by the side.
so watch this. So a GPS is where am I
Yeah.
on the planet
Yeah.
associated to a global positioning satellite. It's now where am I? It's not where am I? It's who am I?
Mm.
And it's a guide position by the side. He says, which is another name for mentoring, is the way that produces the most fruit biblically and in this coming generation.
Bro.
That, my buddy, is
This is
a setup.
that's exactly, this is why we're so passionate about what we do. This is why we're so committed to it, why we're preaching about it, talking about it, why there is a movement in the church that we understand the only way we're going to get the job done is this specifically for the next generation. Are there places where, you know, like we've talked about some of the old methodology? Are there places where they may work? Absolutely. But again, what you said is don't romanticize them. Um, don't, what was the other word you used?
That's nostalgia.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nostalgic.
Don't have this view of it more than what it was. If it's applicable, use it. It may work. But what we do have to understand is 52% of the population doesn't think in the same way about their world the way that we do. Right?
Bro.
And that's a challenge. But I think we see this in Paul, his um, progression and willingness to change, where, he tried to reason with them. He tried to, have kind of intellectual conversations, and then was like, wait a minute.
Mars Hill, right?
I'm not getting anywhere. Mars Hill I'm not getting anywhere with them. The only thing that's gonna show them is when I come alongside and I show them the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus and the
So good.
power of God to transform their lives. I have to come alongside. And I think that's where we've been. I think we've tried to stand at Mars Hill and we've tried to reason, and God is shaking us. That says, if you're going to reach this generation, you're going to have to come beside them and show them the power of the gospel and the power of transformation.
So good, Chris. So good. And I think as we, wind down today, I think it's just so ridiculously vital as we sort of summarize and look back on some of this discussion today. I think it's important for us to be able to look at these things and say, there's you know don't get angry or upset if we came in, Chris, we came in as teenagers.
Yeah.
We there are some elements of irrelevancy that when we saw this church rejoicing about Jesus and you could feel the very real presence of God. I know they were singing some glad morning when this life is o'er. And Sister Rice is on the piano, and whatever.
Sister Blunt is on the stand-up
Yep.
bass. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah. And I mean, I get the fact, like as teenagers, you're probably looking at this like, how in the world did that even, how did you look at that and go, this is amazing? Well, we could feel the power of God, and, there was a lot. And I think that what we have to be careful of as we talk about today, this topic, is to have sort of this romanticized nostalgia that says, what was good, it was good enough for me and it saved me back in that day. And so we need to, no, it's not about methodological recovery.
Yeah.
of any of those things that worked in any particular era. Jay Jones mentioned, I think it was him or maybe somebody else mentioned about the sons of Issachar knew what they should do in their
Yeah. That's what I
generation that
preach
come.
Sunday. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, what we are saying is this: there's a golden opportunity that's in front of us.
Man, that's
And
the gist of it.
that's the thing. The point that we're making isn't, you squooey wabbit, why do you continue to, to speak about romanticize nostalgia? Like, why?
3 people got that reference. Well, our audience that's over 50, they got that one.
Yeah, exactly. It's it's one of those things where you look at it and you say it's not we're not saying to you that what you've we're not saying to you, well, you love Southern gospel music, and so you got to be able to set that down because that's never going to reach anybody and whatever. We're saying, hey, continue to listen to your Southern gospel and get alone with Jesus. And you know what? There might be pockets of the world that, country or whatever, that's still like they're like that is not the point.
It's not the point.
The point is again, it's not any of those mechanisms and vehicles and styles and whatever. That is a whole, we've taken that and put that off the table. We're talking about there's a new way that they're thinking, and there's a new way that they're influenced, and there's a
So
new
good, man.
way that, and I think that
So good.
we need to say that new way is actually poised to actually be the most biblical approach at doing the mission in the entire lifetime of the United States of America.
Man, nailed it. Nailed it. Perfect way to wrap it up today. Great conversation. We were, being off for 2 weeks, man, we had a lot of stuff we had to get out today. So went a little bit long, but we appreciate everybody hanging with us. We had some great comments. There were several that I wanted to get to and we just didn't get to them. So we appreciate the interaction and the engagement. And so thank you for being a part of this conversation. And hopefully, man, I hope people walk away today, Ken, with exactly what you're saying is not a frustration, but a feeling of faith of this is a setup. This is a God setup. He's setting us up for this moment. It's going to be amazing. So thank you for being a part of our conversation today. And we are back in our rhythm. So we'll be back next Tuesday, most likely. Sometime if you're not moving 4,000 pounds of gravel or whatever you were moving today, we'll be on time or somewhere around there. So we'll be back then. We'd love for you to check out all of our stuff on our social media sites, website, all that good stuff. Check it out. We love you. Appreciate you. Thank you for being a part of our conversation. We look forward to coming back to you next Tuesday around 10 o'clock. Until then, go live mobilized. God bless.